Michael Carter sat alone in a small prison cell. The walls were gray and cold, and the iron bars felt like they were closing in on him every second. In his hands, he held a small, folded photograph. The edges were worn out, the picture faded, but the face of a young woman was still clear. Her smile seemed alive even in the dull light of the prison. Michael whispered her name softly, almost like a prayer. Emily. No one else in prison knew why this photo mattered to him. Some said it was his girlfriend, others thought it was just a memory he couldn't let go of. But only Michael knew the truth. And he never spoke about it. Prison life was rough. Every day was the same, the sound of metal doors opening, the shouting of guards, the fights between angry men who had nothing left to lose. Michael didn't belong to any group inside. He didn't pick fights, but he didn't run away from them either. He stayed quiet, kept his head down, and wrote letters in a small notebook. Letters he never sent. Letters no one read. He was different from the others. Some men laughed at him for that. The quiet boy, they called him. But Michael never answered. He had learned one thing in prison: words could start wars, and silence could save your life. At night, while others played cards or shouted across cells, Michael sat near the small barred window, staring at the sky. Through that little square, he could see stars, sometimes the moon. He wondered if Emily ever looked at the same sky. The prison guards had seen hundreds of men break down inside. They had seen rage, violence, regret. But Michael confused them. He never cried. He never screamed. He never begged. It was like he carried a secret that no one else could touch. One afternoon, a new prisoner arrived. His name was Ryan. He was tall, rough, with tattoos running up his arms. Everyone in the prison knew Ryan's reputation. He was violent, dangerous, and proud of it. Most prisoners stayed away from him. But when Ryan walked past Michael's cell, he stopped. He looked at Michael carefully, then smirked. "I know you," he said. Michael didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the notebook in his hands. Ryan leaned closer to the bars and lowered his voice. "You're the reason she's alive." The words hit Michael like a storm. He looked up for the first time, his eyes sharp and cold. "What did you say?" Ryan only smiled. "You know what I'm talking about." And then he walked away, leaving Michael frozen in place. For hours, Michael sat still, staring at the photograph in his hand. How did Ryan know? No one inside these walls knew the truth. Not the guards. Not the prisoners. No one. He had made sure of that. His mind went back to the night everything changed. The flashing lights. The sound of sirens. The broken glass. Emily's frightened face. And his own hands, covered in blood, not hers, but his. That night was burned into his soul. The world believed Michael was guilty of something terrible. But the truth was darker, more complicated. He had made a choice, one that saved Emily but destroyed his own life. A choice that sent him to this cell. A choice that changed his future. Now, years later, Ryan's words reopened the wound. Someone knew. Someone inside prison knew his secret. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He turned the photograph over in his hands again and again. He wondered if Emily remembered him. Did she still think about the man who saved her? Or did she hate him, believing the lies everyone else believed? He closed his eyes, trying to shut out the memories, but they kept coming back: the sound of her voice, the look in her eyes, the fear that night. Suddenly, a shout echoed down the prison hall. Two men were fighting, and guards rushed to stop them. But Michael didn't move. He stayed in the corner of his cell, whispering Emily's name again, almost like he was holding on to something fragile that could disappear at any moment. Emily. The next morning, during breakfast in the cafeteria, Ryan sat across from him. You don't have to hide it, he said casually, as if they were old friends. People think you're a monster. But I know different. I know what you did. Michael clenched his fists. His eyes burned with anger and pain. Keep your mouth shut, he muttered. Ryan only laughed. Relax, Carter. I'm not your enemy. In fact, I think the world should know the truth. Maybe then you'd stop living like a ghost. Michael pushed his tray away and stood up. He couldn't take it. He walked back to his cell, his heart pounding. For the first time in years, Michael felt fear not for himself, but for the secret he carried. If the wrong people knew, everything would fall apart. That night, as he lay on the hard bed, the photograph on his chest, he whispered one promise to himself. No matter what happens, Emily. I'll protect you. Even from here. But deep down, he knew the prison walls were closing in on his secret. And soon, the truth would break free. Michael lay awake on his prison bed, staring at the ceiling. Ryan's words refused to leave his head. You're the reason she's alive. How did Ryan know? How could a stranger in prison know about Emily? Michael closed his eyes, and the past came rushing back like a storm he couldn't escape. Flashback, years ago. Michael Carter was not always the quiet man sitting behind bars. Back then, he was wild. He loved the streets, the sound of fast engines, and the rush of breaking rules. He was only 20 when he became part of a street racing crew in Dallas. His life was loud music, loud friends, loud nights that ended with trouble. But under that noise, Michael was empty. His parents were gone, his brother had left home, and he had no one who truly cared. Racing was the only thing that made him feel alive. That was when he first saw Emily. She wasn't part of his world. Emily Parker was different, calm, soft, and full of light. She was in college, studying nursing, with dreams of helping people. Michael met her at a gas station one night after a race. She was walking with her books, tired but still smiling. For some reason, that smile stayed in his mind. At first, Emily avoided him. She didn't like racers, didn't like the danger. But Michael kept showing up, sometimes with flowers, sometimes just to see her smile again. Slowly, she began to see a side of him that no one else did. A side that wanted more than speed and trouble. But fate is cruel. One night, Michael's crew planned a big race on the highway. He promised Emily he wouldn't go. She begged him to stay away. But Michael's pride was stronger than his promise. He drove that night. And everything went wrong. The race was fast, reckless, and crowded. Cars pushed each other, engines roared, and lights blurred in the dark. Michael was in the lead when he saw headlights coming from the other side of the road. A car swerved, spinning out of control. Inside that car, Emily. She had been on her way home from her late night shift. Michael's heart stopped. He turned the wheel hard, crashing his own car to block the impact. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. Pain shot through his body. But Emily was alive. When the police came, everything was chaos. His crew ran away. Emily was pulled out, scared and crying. Michael stood there, blood on his hands, his car destroyed. And when the police asked who caused the crash, Michael spoke one sentence that changed his life forever. It was me. He took the blame. He didn't explain. He didn't fight. He let them handcuff him. Because in his heart, saving Emily was enough. Back to present. Michael sat in his cell, breathing hard as the memory faded. His fists were tight. His knuckles white. He had never told anyone the full truth. Not the police. Not the judge. Not even Emily. But Ryan knew something. At lunch the next day, Ryan slid a tray beside him again. You think hiding will save you? I know men on the outside. I hear stories. Emily Parker, right? Michael's body went cold. He stared at Ryan, his voice low and sharp. Don't say her name. Ryan smirked. Relax. I'm not here to hurt her. But you should know people talk. And one day, she might come back into the story whether you want it or not. Michael shoved the tray away and stood up, walking out of the cafeteria. His mind raced. Could Emily still think about him? After all these years? Or did she hate him for leaving her alone? That night, Michael sat at the small prison desk and opened his notebook. His hands shook as he wrote her name. For years, he had written letters he never sent. But this time, the words felt heavier. Emily. I don't know if you remember me. Maybe you hate me. Maybe you don't even care anymore. But I need you to know I never wanted this life. I never wanted to leave you. The truth is, I saved you, and I would do it again, even if it cost me everything. He stopped writing. His eyes burned with tears he hadn't shed in years. But before he could finish the letter, a guard called his name. Carter. Mail for you. Michael froze. He rarely got mail. He slowly walked forward and took the envelope. His hands trembled as he looked at the handwriting. It was delicate, familiar. His heart nearly stopped. It was Emily's. He opened it carefully, afraid it might vanish if he touched it too hard. The first line made his chest tighten. Michael, I never forgot you. He sank onto the bed, his whole body shaking. For the first time in years, hope lit his dark cell. But in the shadows of the prison, Ryan watched him closely, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Michael pressed the letter to his chest, whispering Emily's name again. He didn't know why she had written now. He didn't know what it meant for his future. But he knew one thing: his story was far from over. Michael lay on his bed in the prison cell. Sleep would not come. Ryan's words kept circling in his head like a storm. You're the reason she's alive. No one was supposed to know. For years, Michael had buried the truth deep inside him, locked away where no one could reach it. But now, a stranger had said the very words he never wanted to hear. He turned his face toward the wall, but closing his eyes only made the memories stronger. Flashback, before prison. Years ago, Michael Carter had been a different man. At 21, his life was fast and careless. He lived for the thrill of street racing. He loved the way the engine roared, the way the streets blurred beneath his wheels, the way danger felt like freedom. But behind the loud music and late nights, he was empty. His parents were gone, his brother had left the state, and he had no real home. The streets were all he had. And then he met Emily Parker. It was late at night, after a race, when he saw her for the first time. She was walking out of a small gas station with books in her arms, tired but smiling to herself. Michael noticed her, but she barely looked at him. Still, something about her stuck in his mind. Over time, he found reasons to see her again. Sometimes he would show up at the diner where she worked weekends. Sometimes he waited near the campus library just to say hello. Emily wasn't impressed by his leather jacket, his fast car, or his dangerous friends. But she noticed something no one else did: a kindness in his eyes when he wasn't trying to act tough. Slowly, she let him into her world. Emily dreamed of becoming a nurse. She worked hard, studied late, and lived with hope. When Michael sat with her, he felt like he belonged to a different life, one without racing, one without fear. For the first time in years, he thought he could change. But pride is a dangerous thing. One night, his racing crew planned a big event on the highway. Michael promised Emily he wouldn't go. She begged him to stay away. But when the night came, his pride pulled him to the wheel. He couldn't let his crew think he was weak. The race was wild. Engines roared, headlights blurred, and cars flew down the highway. Michael was winning when his heart froze. A car came swerving onto the road out of control. Inside was Emily. She had just finished her late-night hospital shift. She wasn't supposed to be there. But fate had placed her right in the path of danger. Michael had 1 second to choose. 1 second to act. He turned his wheel sharply, crashing his own car to block the oncoming vehicles. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. Pain ripped through his body. His car was destroyed. But Emily was alive. When the police arrived, chaos filled the road. His crew ran. The street was broken with flashing lights and sirens. Emily sat in shock, crying but breathing. And Michael, he stood with blood on his hands, staring at the wreckage. When the officer asked who was responsible, Michael whispered the words that sealed his fate. It was me. He didn't explain. He didn't argue. He didn't point fingers at the ones who deserved the blame. He simply let them take him away in handcuffs. Because for Michael, saving Emily was enough even if it meant losing everything. Back in prison, Michael's chest rose and fell as the memory faded. He gripped the photo of Emily tighter, his knuckles white. No one had ever heard this story. Not the judge, not the guards, not even Emily herself. But Ryan knew something. The next day, Ryan sat across from him in the cafeteria again. "You carry her face in your pocket," Ryan said with a grin. "You think no one notices, but I do. That girl, you saved her, didn't you?" Michael glared at him. His voice was low, sharp. "Keep her name out of your mouth." Ryan chuckled. "Relax, Carter. I'm not your enemy. But you should know secrets don't stay buried forever. Sooner or later, the truth comes out." Michael stood and walked away, his fists clenched. His heart pounded with anger and fear. If people found out, if Emily got dragged back into his dark world, he couldn't let that happen. That night, he sat at his small desk, notebook open. His hands trembled as he began to write. "Emily. I don't know if you think of me anymore. Maybe you hate me. Maybe you don't even care. But I need you to know I never wanted this. I never wanted to leave you behind. I saved you once, and I would do it again, even if it cost me my life." He stopped. The words blurred as his eyes filled with tears he hadn't let fall in years. Then, a guard's voice broke the silence. "Carter. Mail for you." Michael froze. He never got mail. Never. The guard pushed an envelope through the bars. Michael picked it up with shaking hands. The handwriting on the front made his heart stop. It was soft, careful, familiar. It was Emily's. His breath caught. He opened it slowly, like it might vanish if he rushed. The first line made his chest ache. "Michael, I never forgot you." The walls of the prison blurred. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than pain. He felt hope. But across the hall, Ryan watched him silently, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Michael pressed the letter against his chest. His heart was racing, his soul trembling. He didn't know why Emily had reached out after all this time. He didn't know what her words meant. But one thing was certain: his story wasn't over. It was only beginning. Michael sat on the edge of his bed, the letter trembling in his hands. His heart beat so loudly that he could barely hear anything else. For years, he had written letters to Emily that never left his cell. And now, here he was, holding one from her. He unfolded the paper carefully. Every word felt like gold. "Michael. I don't know if this letter will reach you. I don't even know if you'll want to read it. But I had to write. I never forgot what you did for me. I never forgot that night." Michael's eyes blurred with tears. He pressed his hand over his mouth to keep from making a sound. Everyone called you guilty. Everyone said you ruined lives. But I know the truth. You saved mine. You gave up your future so I could live mine. And I will never let the world erase that. He closed his eyes, clutching the paper tight. The cold walls of his cell felt less heavy for the first time in years. But the letter wasn't finished. I'm fighting now, Michael. I'm searching for answers in your case. I believe there are things the court ignored. Records, witnesses, pieces of truth no one cared to see. I can't promise anything. But I can promise this: I won't stop until the world knows who you really are. Michael's breath caught. His chest filled with something he hadn't felt since before prison: hope. But then another thought struck him. If Emily was digging into the past, she was stepping into danger. The people he had protected her from would not want the truth uncovered. He finished reading the letter. The last line broke him. Michael, you once promised to protect me. Now let me protect you. His tears finally fell. For years, he had carried the weight alone. But Emily was reaching into the darkness to pull him out. Trouble in prison. The next morning, Michael folded the letter carefully and placed it inside his notebook. He thought he could keep it hidden, but Ryan noticed the change in his face. Got mail, huh? Ryan said with a smirk at breakfast. Must be nice to have someone still care about you. Michael ignored him, but Ryan wasn't finished. He leaned closer, his voice low. Was it from her? Michael's jaw tightened. Stay out of my business. Ryan laughed. Relax. I'm not trying to take her from you. But you should be careful. People outside these walls don't always know what's best for them. Michael's stomach dropped at those words. Was Ryan threatening Emily? Or was it just another mind game? Either way, Michael knew he couldn't show weakness. He stood and walked away before his anger exploded. But Ryan's laughter followed him down the hall. Nights of restless hope. In his cell, Michael read the letter again and again. Each word gave him strength. He remembered Emily's laugh, her kindness, the way she believed in people even when they didn't deserve it. For the first time in years, he started to dream. He imagined walking free. He imagined hearing Emily call his name without fear in her voice. But dreams were dangerous in prison. They made a man careless. And Michael couldn't afford that. Emily's fight. Outside the prison walls, Emily Parker was moving through dusty files in a county courthouse. She carried folders, records, and yellowed papers that no one had looked at in years. Her heart hurt every time she thought about Michael sitting in a cold cell. She remembered his face the night of the crash. Broken, bloody, but still turning toward her, making sure she was alive before the police took him away. She had tried for years to move on, but she couldn't. No matter what she did, no matter how much time passed, Michael's sacrifice haunted her. Now, with every page she turned, every record she found, she felt the truth was closer. Someone had hidden evidence. Someone had buried Michael's innocence. And Emily was determined to bring it back to light. Back inside. Michael didn't know what Emily was doing outside, but he could feel it in her words. She was fighting. He wanted to stop her, to protect her from the dangers of digging too deep, but he had no power behind bars. One night, Ryan walked past his cell again. His voice was calm, too calm. Hope is dangerous, Carter. Don't let it blind you. Some secrets should stay buried. Michael's eyes burned with fury. If you ever go near her. Ryan grinned. Relax. I'm just giving you advice. But remember, this walls don't last forever. And when she digs too far, the wrong people will notice. Michael's fists clenched until they hurt. He knew Ryan was right about one thing. The past was not safe. But then he looked at Emily's letter again. And he whispered to himself, neither is love. And I won't let her fight alone. The prison lights shut off for the night. Michael lay awake, the letter close to his chest. For years, he had been a ghost inside these walls. But Emily's words had given him life again. And deep down, he knew one thing: this was only the beginning of a battle that could change everything. The small town of Riverdale had begun to whisper Michael's name again. But this time, the whispers were different. They were not about the boy who had ruined his life. They were about the man who had come back stronger. Michael now worked at the community center, helping young people who were walking the same dark path he once walked. He told them the truth: the fights, the crime, the prison cell that almost broke him. Some kids listened, some laughed, but Michael never gave up. He believed even one life saved was worth it. But just when he felt he had found peace, the past knocked on his door. One rainy evening, as he locked up the center, a man stepped out of the shadows. Michael froze. It was Derek Carter, the same man who had been with him the night of the crime years ago. The same man who had escaped while Michael was caught. Derek smirked. "Long time, Mike. Looks like prison made you soft." Michael's chest tightened. He had not seen Derek in years. Memories of betrayal rushed back: the flashing police lights, Derek running away, Michael being tackled to the ground. "What do you want, Derek?" Michael asked, his voice low and controlled. "I heard you're playing hero now. Helping kids, huh? Cute. But I need money. And you're going to help me?" Michael shook his head. "That life is over for me." But Derek leaned closer, his eyes cold. "You think the world forgave you? You think people forgot? Don't fool yourself. To them, you're still the criminal. And if you don't help me, I'll make sure they all remember exactly who you are." Michael clenched his fists. Inside, a war began: the man he used to be, and the man he was trying to become. He knew if he followed Derek again, everything he built would crumble. But if he refused, Derek might destroy his new life anyway. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. He thought of Sarah, the woman who had trusted him, the kids who looked up to him, the second chance he had been given. Would he risk it all because of one man from his past? The next day, Derek appeared again. This time, he wasn't asking. He was demanding. "One last job, Mike. We do this, and we both walk away rich. Or I talk. And you lose everything." Michael looked him straight in the eyes. "I already lost everything once. I'm not losing it again. Not like this." Derek's smile faded. His eyes narrowed. "Then you just made yourself my enemy." For the first time in years, Michael felt true fear. Not for himself, but for the people around him. Derek was dangerous. If Michael didn't give in, Derek would make trouble. Maybe even hurt someone. That evening, Michael walked alone through the streets of Riverdale. The town lights blurred as questions flooded his mind. Could he go to the police? Would they even believe him, after his record? Or would they say, once a criminal, always a criminal? The battle inside him grew heavier. He had promised himself never to return to crime. But now the past was dragging him back, threatening to crush everything good he had worked for. By the time Michael reached his apartment, his decision was still unclear. He stood in the doorway, staring at the photo on the wall, a picture of him and Sarah, smiling together at the community center. She had believed in him when no one else did. He whispered to himself, "I can't let her down. I can't let them down." But as he locked the door, a sound outside made him turn sharply. A shadow moved in the alley. Michael's heart raced. Derek wasn't going to wait. The past had truly returned and it was ready to strike. The night was silent in Riverdale, but Michael's heart was not. He knew Derek was out there, waiting. The past had returned, and this time it wanted to destroy him. Michael sat in his small apartment, thinking of everything he had built: the trust of the children at the community center, the hope in Sarah's eyes, the quiet peace he had finally found. He could not let Derek take it away. Suddenly, a loud bang shook the door. Michael jumped to his feet. Derek's voice echoed through the hallway. "Open up, Mike. You're coming with me, or your whole new life burns down tonight." Michael's hands shook, but his eyes hardened. He would not run. Not again. He opened the door slowly, facing the man who had once been his friend but was now his biggest enemy. Derek pushed inside, his eyes wild. "You think you're better than me? You think people forgot who you really are?" He pulled a small knife from his jacket, the steel glinting in the dim light. "One last job, or I make sure you lose everything." Michael's chest tightened, but he stepped forward, his voice firm. "No, Derek. You already took years of my life. You won't take the rest." Derek laughed coldly. "Then you're a dead man walking." In that tense moment, Michael made a choice, the kind of choice that would define his life forever. He didn't fight back with violence. Instead, he grabbed his phone and dialed 911 right in front of Derek. "Police," Michael said loud enough for Derek to hear, his voice steady. "I need help. My past is at my door." Derek froze, shock flashing across his face. "You think they'll believe you? You're the criminal, not me." But this time, Michael didn't back down. "Maybe. But I'd rather stand for what's right and lose everything than fall back into darkness." Within minutes, sirens filled the street. Red and blue lights cut through the night. Derek panicked and tried to run, but officers caught him just outside the building. Michael stood at the doorway, watching as they pulled Derek away in handcuffs the same way they had once taken him. But tonight was different. Tonight, Michael wasn't the broken boy who had lost everything. He was the man who had chosen purpose over fear. Later, as the police thanked him for his call, Sarah arrived. She rushed to him, worry in her eyes. "Michael, are you okay?" He nodded, though his hands still trembled. "I almost lost myself tonight. But I remembered. I'm not that man anymore." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she hugged him tightly. "You proved it? Not just to me, but to everyone." Word of what happened spread through Riverdale. The man once known only as a prisoner was now seen as someone stronger, someone who faced his past and chose a better way. The kids at the community center looked at him with even more respect. To them, Michael wasn't just a counselor. He was living proof that second chances were real. As weeks passed, Michael often stood outside the center, watching the children laugh and play. A quiet smile touched his face. He knew the past would always be a part of him, but it no longer controlled him. For the first time in years, Michael felt free. Not because he left prison, but because he found his true purpose. And in that freedom, his story was no longer about crime or punishment or pain. It was about hope. It was about change. It was about a man who walked out of prison and into his real life.